On Iran, gentlemen, very confused. The president yesterday said he's got word from Iran that they're not going to kill anybody else. Didn't say who, didn't say what, but said, we'll be watching. Some reports that there was a military operation perhaps in place, and now there's not. The New York Times says a military strike is days away at the soonest. I just don't know why they would report that. That's just pure disinformation because it's just not true. I mean, there's just no way that's a thing. But the Washington Post reports, and they reported this at like 4 o'clock yesterday. I've not seen anybody else report it, and I've not seen them take it down. They say the protests have stopped, that the protesters are off the streets. So I find it all very confusing, gentlemen, I have to say. The status of the protests, the status of the crackdown, the status of the potential U.S. response. And the president, in an interview with Reuters, number 104, raised questions about the governing possibilities of the Shah's son, although he waffled a little bit. He said if he's popular, great, but if you take his words literally, which is always just a fool's errand, according to Reuters, this interview, Trump questions Reza Pahlavi's ability to garner support in Iran. Iran 105 closed their airspace for a while yesterday, although it's reportedly opened back up. And I'm at a loss to know what's happening. Hogan, what is happening in Iran and what's happening with the administration's policy towards Iran as best you can figure?
I don't exactly know what's going on in Iran. I do share your concern or confusion over the reporting that said, some type of military action days away. In reality, if we're being honest, everything is just days away. So whatever.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of skywriting, as my old journalism professor used to say. You can rest assured this, because having been there and had these conversations in both the Situation Room and SC and other places in the White House, they have a litany of plans and ideas of what needs to happen, eventualities should Iran begin to continue mass murder of its people. Trump was really kind of fixated on the hanging part of it too. And then Iran says they had captured people. They said they were going to hang them. I think what is pretty obvious, though, to the world, at least it should be at this point, both members here in political parties on the right and the left in this country, is don't mess with him. Like, if he's telling you he's going to do something, he's most likely going to do it. Now, you may not like how he does it, and you may not know when it's coming, but he has a whole host of eventualities in front of him and decisions to make. And when you see kind of the unpacking of how we got to a decision on Venezuela or how we got to the surgical strike in Iran, those things were done a long time before the actual implementation or action that was taken. So just know this, he's getting an earful from all sides on what should happen and what could happen in Iran.
Well said. Really interesting stuff. Hogan, one more question for you, and then Kevin. When there are all these reports that say because some of America's assets were moved to Latin America to deal with Venezuela, the president's options are limited, both in terms of initial strike, but also to defend against retaliation. How real is that?
I mean, again, to say they're limited is kind of without describing or unpacking what that actually means. I mean, there are really no limitations on the American military except for if we were to be so depleted on ships or planes or weapons or missiles, things like that, which of course we're always trying to pass in Congress money for those items that we keep our military up and going. I wouldn't say it's limited at all. And in fact, when you begin to believe it is, that's exactly when Trump often will do something like kill Soleimani or take out the Iranian nuclear facility, and you're like, oh, it's a reminder of just how powerful, how surgical, and how strategic this military actually is.
Kevin.
Yeah, one thing that Hogan said that really prompted me to think is I think this president is motivated, unlike any of his predecessors, in the realm of innocents being killed. He took action in Syria first term when Hogan was working with him. When he saw, chemical gas being deployed, he's spoken out quite a bit about, children and women in Ukraine. So that is a motivating factor, I think, when he sees the images and the video coming out of Iran, and of course it's shaky with the internet outage. I think that was a motivating factor to obviously step up his rhetoric, right, and put pressure on him to change course. And it seems potentially, to your point, Mark, in the post reporting, and that reporting was like buried in that story.
That these protests, very end of the piece. I would have led with it. If they
exactly right.
If they think the protests are over. But have you guys seen that reported by anybody else?
No, of course.
I haven't.
And the foreign minister, Iran's foreign minister, was with Brett Barry yesterday saying the same thing.
He said it, yeah. Baghdad Bob said it, but
Baghdad Bob, who was a master class yesterday.
Yeah, it was. But it just seems strange that one of the leading news organizations in the world buries in its story that the protests have ended. Baghdad Bob says it to Brett Baer, and I don't. Not only do I not see anybody else matching that reporting, I don't see anybody knocking it down. Nor do I see any new videos that suggest it's not true. So I'll say this, and we're going to move on because we're all operating a little blindly here. I'll say this. I think we'll see a military strike or a Witkoff rabbit out of a hat in the next 36 hours. One of the two.
I will say too, one of the interesting things as well is the fact that the reporting that we did not have a carrier group in the area, in the Gulf, and obviously the Lincoln is steaming there from the South China Sea. But that was one of the interesting elements. I don't know, we've got 10, 11 carrier groups, and one of them isn't always in that region. Was surprising to me.
Those ships move as quickly as Hogan Gidley does when the check comes. Hogan.
Anyway, we don't have your money, Mark, so you don't have to wait.
It's going to take them a week to pay.
Same topic, but different topic, but in the same family. I would find it interesting if someone would do some reporting, though, because when a lot of our colleges and universities were shut down over protests against Israel, et cetera, why are there no protests about the rampant slaughter of Iranian citizens? I think that's an interesting layer to peel back.
People on the right, like yourself, raise that. But why aren't conservatives out there protesting?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Whatever.
Well, mostly when red people say that, they mean the people who protested against Israel and Gaza. Why aren't they protesting now? Which is a perfectly good point. But why? Where are I want to see. I want to see
because we're usually working.
Usually working.
Don't have time to protest.
I want to see Turning Point USA protests. All right.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park. Hit the subscribe button. Be part of the two-way community. Never miss an episode. Be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.